I will invite the floor to the participants. I will open the floor for Q&A session. Okay, so our first presenter is Dr. Manodha Gamage, my good friend, the Managing Director of Intelligence Solutions and Consultancy Limited, Sri Lanka. I will just go through his biodata. Manodha received his PhD in ICT and Communications Engineering from the University of Electrocommunications in Tokyo, Japan in 2006. He is a telecommunication engineer, ICT consultant, senior university lecturer, visiting in many universities and a popular trainer in ICT industry. Has been a resource person to APT for more than a decade. Over to you, Manodha.
Thank you, Tarlika. It's great pleasure to be here today. And first of all, let me thank APT for inviting me for this important workshop. As usual, I joined this with the great pleasure, and it's even, I mean, it's icing on the cake that Tarlika is the chairperson for this, and I see and the introduction given by her gave me the right platform to do my presentation. So first of all, let me share my slides with you. Oh, I can't share according to this. Can the admin allow me to share the presentation here?
Yes, I allow you to share your presentation.
Yeah, sure. Thank you. Can you all see my slides?
Yes. Yes, I can
Yes,
see your
Manodha.
slide.
Okay, great.
Go ahead.
Yeah. We all knew that there is a paradigm change happening, and we were talking about, instead of highways, we need information highways. Instead of shopping malls, we need online shopping platforms. Instead of classroom, traditional education, we were talking about blended learning and LMSs, online education. Instead of going to cinema and traditional media, we were more happy with the internet-based systems. And basically, instead of commuting, we have already been communicating more instead of commuting. So this has now expedited due to the pandemic. I mean, whoever was a bit reluctant to do these things are almost forced to do this. In that context, we would like to see what is this essential, what are the essential things for a digital transformation. Again, digital transformation is nothing new. We all have been hearing this e-government, m-government for decades now. So what do you really need? You need to have the strategy for that, and that strategy has to be a long-term strategy accommodating all needs of the people. Different people have different needs. We all know that, especially in a third world country, the needs of the people in the different classes, different professions, different geographical locations of the country are very different. And also they should be aligned with the business strategies of the organizations, business institutions, including service providers. Also, the culture matters a lot, because the appetite we have to for learning, the way we collaborate, how we have to collaborate with the external parties, with the neighbors, with the neighboring countries, with the organizations like APT, etc. And the organization, how our education system, the skills of the people and the leadership helps for this, how our governance and the transparency of the governments and the policymakers, how it helps to go for the, and the most important part is the investment, how the investment comes in and how we can encourage and motivate the investors. but more than anything else, as it was mentioned by the chairperson as well, the connectivity is very important, and the infrastructure, the main infrastructure we are talking here is the ICT frameworks for each and every application. So together with that capability, we also need to have the content and the data-driven content is very useful for data-driven decision making. Then obviously automation and customer experience are some of the key capabilities that would contribute for the success of digital transformation. Then the digital connectivity, and the infrastructure. As we all understand, the connectivity is the coverage and the bandwidth or the speed that we get in accessing the internet, because most of these services are going to be using internet. And then the digital infrastructure, as I said, will be ICT frameworks. And then for every application, we need IT. That's how I believe it. I have been believing it for the last 2 decades as well. And but I will just touch few things here regarding maybe education, agriculture, and a little bit on banking and finance, and maybe a bit on trading as well. Then, so what really the digital infrastructure means is actually the elements that are capable of providing the support for the management of cities, maybe villages, whatever. I mean, it's basically the smart city concept. So it includes everything. It includes all applications, living of the improve the quality of living of the people. And that's very, very important in this present day context with the pandemic. So this includes, as very correctly mentioned again, the fiber optic cable is the key for the broadband. And this is where Sri Lanka started the National Backbone Network. And I was glad that I was part of it when it was initially started in 2012 by including that to one of the main leading operators in the country. I'm not sure where exactly it stands today, unfortunately. Probably the plans were not completely executed as we planned. If it had been executed according to our plans, the plan was to have, now Sri Lanka has 332 divisional secretariats in the country. Each divisional secretariat was supposed to have a gateway to this fiber national network by end of 2018. I am not sure whether we have it. Definitely we have a lot, but I'm not sure whether we have exactly executed that plan. Then a lot of IoT objects, sensors, that IoT applications with agriculture and various other applications should happen. And there are small scale situations that are happening, but actually we need to expedite these things because it's not a and the environment is not for us to move around that much. So we are confined to our homes. Probably we will have to contain this kind of commuting for the next probably a year or two. You don't know. I mean, it doesn't have to be you have to be at home all the time for the next year, but you have to restrict your commuting as much as possible, at least for a year or probably two, I don't know. And then obviously automating the bureaucratic processes and go online. Even though we were saying that the e-government, m-government, I mean, all that were exposed during the pandemic, that we saw that a lot of services were not available online. And then if you look at the traditional the role of a regulator, basically everywhere the regulators came up with the acts, and then with the liberalization of the telecom industry. And they were mostly concentrating on the voice, but today it's more than that, and that's the data. Lot of applications, and we talk this. We say the fourth industrial revolution. And then therefore the regulators should concentrate more on the digital connectivity with infrastructure, and they themselves should have very flexible framework and dynamically evolving policies and regulations for to accommodate emergencies and the needs of the people. As we said at the very beginning, all this digital infrastructure and the transformation is for people. Therefore, we need to accommodate the needs of people. I mean, needs of all population, not just a group of people. The lack of connectivity and the lack of probably the quality of service were exposed with COVID. I'm sharing these slides and this information based on my experience during the last 2 years in Sri Lanka. Basically, we were confined to one place, and then we have seen a lot of rural communities having no proper connectivity. Probably we didn't know that much it was bad, but that was exposed. And then the quality of service, even in areas where we live, which is not the rural community, which is kind of urban, but because of the reason I believe is the infrastructure was of the operators were concentrating more on the cities, because everybody went to work in the morning and did the work from their offices. I mean, exceptional people like me used to do work from home since, say, 2010 or even more than 10 years. But my neighbors were not working from home, so I was having a good quality of service, especially in wireless mobile area. But sooner the lockdowns came in, I realized that I can't even download an email from my wireless connectivity that I have. So that is the setup, and that has been like that for a long time now. And it cannot be improved. Various reasons are there. I'm not blaming an operator. It's not even just one operator. I've tried several operators. It's equally the same. Everybody is having issues with this quality of service, and lack of ICT frameworks, again, for education, agriculture. We see every day issues with this in Sri Lanka. There are a lot of good things as well, but it's my duty now to highlight these issues for improvement. And no point of talking about what's happening well, because we all know that part. And I'm not saying there's nothing here. A lot of online education is going on, but a lot of online purchasing, the trading going on. But the real rural community, farmers, education for rural kids, that is the issue. And affordability is a great issue there. Then the content for these applications, as well as the ICT literacy of these people, is very, very questionable. And then obviously the biggest issue, one of the biggest issues, is the smart devices. I mean, how much smart devices are available, and how much they can afford to have, and how many you need now. You have 3 kids and all 3 are doing online education. What, you need to have 3 smart devices? That's the biggest problem. I mean, I don't think, I mean, even we run into, I have 2 kids and we run into that situations as well. And more than that, the economies of the countries are affected with this COVID right now. Sri Lanka is having huge issues with the foreign exchange. Therefore, all these smart devices which are being imported, and probably the connectivity and investment for the operators also involves a lot of foreign currency. These could be issues because of the, I mean, therefore, it's an integrated thing, as Tarlika said. It's not just a mobile operator or fixed line operator. It's a national economic level situation, because of the, I mean, tourism is basically zero, which is the main income, foreign income for a country like Sri Lanka. And because of this, the economy is greatly affected, and a lot of subsidies to be given to the poor people, and the poor community is probably a larger portion of the population. So these are issues that we have. And apart from these technical issues that I have listed in the slide, there are other economic issues that I mean, restrict you in finding solutions. So if I take some of these data that I found in one of these references given below, some of the recent survey done by that party, and it says that in Sri Lanka there are only 23% of households having a laptop or a desktop, and then only 1.7 million, that is 7,000 plus per 100 people, sorry, 7.81 for 100 people having a fixed internet connectivity. Then maybe 34% of the population had internet connectivity in 2019. Then use of smartphones is very limited as well. So these are some of the facts that we need to address. And if you look at, unfortunately, some parts of the slide gets covered by these tabs that appear in Zoom. So let me, I don't know, let me escape from this slide view and go to if I do it like this, can you all see it well? No, I don't think so, right? Yeah, let me, okay, now I think it's, right. So if it is education, we see some of the issues like connectivity comes first, and then obviously the lack of devices, the common issues that I mentioned, and also we see the ICT literacy issues especially with the teachers, and therefore you need to provide training for teachers. This is a sudden thing, so we were not planning for it, which is why we should have done some of these things well in advance. And as I said at the very beginning, there was a paradigm change that was happening, but it was very slow. Then now, and therefore everything got exposed with the pandemic and lockdowns. So you need to change if you want to do education. It's not just the people, but you need to have changes in the curriculum and the way you see it, your exam-oriented education, what content you teach, I mean, everything has to be changed. Therefore, you need the possible solution will be a reform in an education. And this is the best time for that. But I don't see most of the areas that I don't see that this is happening in the right direction, probably. We need to have a bigger discussion on that. So because it's not just the connectivity, yes, connectivities and devices are very important, but the changes should happen to accommodate the ICT part of this in all applications. And also if you look at the finance sector, that again similar, you can see similar connectivity and device issue is there, and lack of frameworks is there. So all that is, and more than anything else, that the policies and the procedures, I mean, sometimes even though we have, say, for example, digital signature capability, we have a lot of digitization happened, but probably the proper integration hasn't happened. Therefore, as a result, you still, if you talk to the bank, they would ask you to visit the branch for certain things. They would ask you to fill the forms that are traditional, which have been there for the last 30 years. And most of these forms that you fill, the information already bank knows about you for years and years. So therefore, that is to be addressed. I mean, if you look at this real problem, it's a simple restructuring you need and simple changes in policies you need. If you take a form, you write your name, your address, your phone number, your ID, your whatever. I mean, all this information are already there in the system with all banks that you interact with. Unless you are a very new customer to a bank, which is very unlikely, all this information is already there, and it's just a matter of enabling an extra service. So you need to make these changes when you go online, and the issue is that lack of understanding of these systems by the decision makers in those institutions, and also the regulatory framework that they have, probably from the central bank or whoever. So those are the things that it's not just the connectivity and ISP can solve these issues, but it's more of bigger picture that we need to see. Now, so what solutions that we have, we need to have? Obviously, one of the key things is, as I always say, the connectivity, as this session is also highlighting that how the connectivity for all can help this transformation. That is definitely an important factor. Connectivity in the main cities and the highly populated areas is basically not an issue. We have fiber, we have various fixed line technologies, we have all mobile technologies. We will get 5G soon as well in these areas, but is it enough? I don't think so. The concerned parties are in the rural communities where we lack the connectivity a lot. And therefore, how can we need to provide the ecosystem there so that the operators and the service providers will see it as an opportunity. I mean, it's not viable financially for an operator to build the infrastructure and provide a simple service like broadband to smaller number of customers. Therefore, the collaboration is very important, and how you do this is like probably the regulator can say, I would like to say, like in Sri Lanka, if there are 5-6 operators, probably all operators need not to develop the infrastructure in all rural communities. We don't need competition there. Probably it can be more collaborated effort. Like in certain areas, maybe one operator can take care of that area, another operator can take care of another area, and so on, so that it's going to be financial viable for everybody. That's where the regulator has to play a role. They can give the guidelines and the KPIs, all that based on the other areas where the competition is, and encourage the operators to do the investment. But also at the same time, we have to see this holistic value. Like say, I know all these operators also do their corporate social responsibility work, CSR, and that can be connected with this. And but for that, you need to have a good discussion. Also, the governments should take the lead, and the policymakers should take the lead. They should make sure that, like say for example, if I take a very rural community in Sri Lanka, say take Polonnaruwa or somewhere very rural people are there in those some of the areas, and then in that area, if we can provide them online education, online training, online government services, their passport can be taken directly from there, all their issues can be solved by, main issues can be solved by going online. Then it's not the highway that we need to build from Colombo to Polonnaruwa, it's the information highway we need to provide, and probably the government has to help those people to get the device. They themselves also will invest in the devices, because they see that they can do a lot of things in a situation where there is a pandemic, where they can't travel, where they don't have to come to Colombo all the time, where they don't have to start traveling, they can stay in their homes and do a lot of things, not just one thing. So when that is there, they will, it's like having a television at home, having a refrigerator at home, having a radio at home. They will realize that, yes, we need to have this essential commodity, which is a telephone or smart device. So we have to create that atmosphere, and the responsibility of that lies, I think, with the all stakeholders, like the regulator should lead it.
Manodha. Time,
yes. Yeah, last slide. This is last slide. And then yeah. So therefore, the operators should play a role. The government should play a role. And in my conclusion, as I say, I've already discussed this in the last slide as well. Regulators and governments has a role to play to invest in that partially, and also encourage the investment and initiate the collaboration with all parties, including the public, and motivate the stakeholders to invest in the ICT infrastructure. And thank you.
Thank you very much, Manodha, for your informative presentation, and especially because being a Sri Lankan, I really learned a lot from your presentation. And in his presentation, he has clearly mentioned for a sustainable digital transformation, the 4 arms should be in place, like strategy, culture, organization, and capabilities. And on the other hand, the regulator should look, regulator as well as the industry should have more concern on the infrastructure development, especially in rural areas. And on the other hand, like yes, there is a lot of problems in the rural connectivity, especially the connectivity in rural areas, but especially in education sector. But we have to understand there are a lot of more good things in Sri Lanka. It's happening, especially the free education, free internet connectivity for the university students. They can log into their Learn platform free of charge, and especially the students. Itaksalavi is free of charge. So there are a lot of good things also happening during this pandemic. So thank you very much. I think we will open the floor to ask questions from Manodha at the end of the presentation. Thank you. So our next speaker is Ms. Vibha Tomar. She is the Joint Advisor, Broadband and Policy Analysis from Telecom Regulatory Authority of India. I will read this. I will read his biodata. Ms. Vibha Tomar is an ITS officer of 1996 batch, currently working as Joint Advisor in TRAI since October 2019. Prior to this, she worked in various capacities in Department of Telecommunications and BSNL. Over to you, Vibha.
Thank you, ma'am. Thanks for giving me the opportunity. I am audible?
Yes.
Okay. So let me start my presentation.